Hey guys, I am taking a little cycling tour over here in BKK3, and I wanted to give you guys a kind of an overview of some of the risk and dangers associated with living in the country of Cambodia. And I recently had a friend who died in Cambodia, and I'll tell you how she died in a few moments, but I'm actually going to just go through all the risk and things like that. This was actually my yoga teacher, a person named Natalia Montoni, and I didn't actually know her that well. I mean, I was her student, but so I'm going to kind of tell you like what you should watch out for here. And the first one is rabies. There are a lot of strays. There's not a lot. Actually, I take that back. Cambodia and Thailand do have some strays. So, but don't seem to be very aggressive. So my experience with the dogs here is that there's still some risk here. Like if you're walking by, say, the temple complex, it may be that you see them acting aggressively. Now, I've seen that maybe a few different times in Phnom Penh, and maybe a few different times at Siem Reap. So what you actually want to do is just carry like a rock or a stick with you. And most of these, and I'll show you some of the dogs around here, most of these are not very dangerous. They're just like little mutts. But there have been some cases of foreign visitors who were bitten by rabid dogs, and they were, taking care of strays, attempting to pet them or something like that. So it's recommended if you get bitten that you go and get a rabies shot. And the risk is that's going to cost you a lot of money. So what I do, if I'm near any dog like this, I just try to avoid getting bitten. So once or twice, I had to jump out of the way of the dog, So, and the next risk that I'm going to tell you about is the snakes. If that's especially true, if you live, like, say, out away from the city, if you have your own property, if you go into the bush or near lakes and things like that, there's vipers here, there's cobras, there's scorpions, things of this nature, that some of them are poisonous, especially the vipers, So you have to be a little bit careful of that kind of wildlife, There used to be also tigers in Cambodia, but those have since disappeared. So you don't have to worry about the tigers. There's, of course, way more dogs than there is tigers here. So the other thing about wildlife is the monkeys. Same thing with them. They do have diseases that they can spread to you, get affected, something like that, So, another risk that you're facing here is scams. There's a lot of things like housing fraud. There's, people who skip out on bills, who steal money from people, that in terms of scams, I actually met another expat guy who came here. He invested a lot of money in some business that the guy didn't want to work on it or something of this nature. He just basically skipped out on it, withdrew some of the money and left. But you hear things like that. But in terms of scams, I personally have not seen that. So most of the Cambodians that I have met have been very honest people. And then the other part of that is things like bag snatching that From what I hear, that still goes on a little bit, but the good news about that is that has improved a lot. The thefts, the phone thefts, things like that. You see how I'm riding with my cell phone, on my bike down the street. Well, some people have advised me not to do something like this because somebody can just come back and swipe it, So, and I've heard of that happening to other people, but just not me, So, and the big one is traffic safety. So what happened in Natalia is that she was killed by a hit-and-run driver. They don't know if it was a truck. They don't really know anything about that. What happened was somebody just drove by and found her in her motorcycle where she was just dead. And so they don't know. They think it might have been a truck that came by and knocked her off or drug her, along the ground or something like that. So I personally really have no idea other than she was my yoga instructor and died, But I think part of what was going on there is that she was on a major highway. And so you can say that where I'm riding is just a side street, it's not a place where people drive very fast. And I think what is going on there is that a lot of, people who ride motorbikes over here, they're driving a little too fast, and they, kind of lose their sense of, safety, risk, or whatever. But I think the rule is that if you drive over, say, 30 miles an hour and you crash, 35, 40, something like that, 45, if you're going 45 and you have a crash, you're going to be in serious trouble, right? So for what I do when I'm riding my bicycle here, which you can see, is that I'm only riding about 7 miles an hour. So I do not really, take a lot of risk in terms of speed. Now somebody could hit me, but I usually do cycling every day or every other day, and have had, I've had some close calls. I went down once, but I was just going very slowly. I hit a slick spot on some granite and went down on my leg, and there was no damage whatsoever, So I was fine with that. But if you're coming over here, make sure to wear a helmet. Do be advised that Cambodia doesn't have very good stop signs and stoplights. And a lot of what the people do is they just run it, and I've seen that many, many, many times, It's a pedestrian. So I don't really ride a motorbike, have not, I've just gone with tuk-tuks and like my bicycle here. So, and you see this in the newspaper all the time, these deaths and things like that. So the next risk that I want to let you guys know about is drug use, and this is mostly for foreign tourists. But there seem to be a lot of people who come over here to do drugs, and that's kind of a poor choice. And there's a lot of people who die from drug use and abuse. There's one guy, name is No Joke Howard. I was watching his channel on Cambodia, and I didn't actually know he has some good information out there. No Joke Howard, he has a very large following on YouTube. Well, I noticed that he stopped making videos in 2019. It turns out that the reason he stopped making videos is because he died of a heart attack. Now, I don't know. I'm assuming it was probably drug-induced, but they haven't made that public. I think it was like 29, so I'm well in my 40s, But if you look at the news media in Cambodia, what you'll see is that there's invariably stories of people who were found dead in their hotel rooms, and it's usually, I don't know if it's coke or meth or ecstasy or something like that. It's just not. It's a pretty heavy, heavily drug infested country. So it's not. You want to do that, great for you, but I personally wouldn't, just because it's too risky, But this is how kind of the type of individuals that this country attracts, All right, I'm gonna wrap it up and see you guys later.